would we want to learn to practice to teach the layers system? Why don't we just teach the way that all the other yoga teachers teach and just introduce people to the body and the breath and maybe a little bit of meditation? Why go so far as internalizing a system of reality? Essentially, because that's what yoga originally was about. It was about exploring the fullness of reality. And the layer system is the best map that I have ever come across in all the different systems that I have done and lots of different cultural frameworks, both in its simplicity, its practicality, and that it also is able to hold all the other belief systems, I believe, within it. What do I mean by that? I talked about this a little bit in one of my podcasts that I'll link at the bottom here. But essentially, the layers system gives you a map for all of human experience and unifies the idea, because essentially any map of the cosmos must also include a map of the soul. And through the Tantric tradition, it actually shows you both how your individual soul can be individualized and what that actually means, but also how it's connected to the bigger picture. Yeah. So that, like that Hermetic saying, as above, so below, so without, so within. And the layers system is a really good way to start to introduce people to the deeper parts of themselves. And I see this returning back home, right, in a few different ways. Returning back home to the fact that the Tantra is really all of our paths, because we are all householders. So Tantra, you've heard me say a lot, Tantra is a part of the household. What does that mean? The householder means living in a house, interacting with other humans, with other people on a day-to-day basis, who also live in homes, who have families, who go to work and have jobs, have to pay for things, have to interact in society, be a part of society. Yeah? The renunciates were the people who didn't do any of that, who lived in a monastery, who lived in the forest, and just sat and meditated all day. Yeah? So very few, if any of us, would be able to do that. And so we need to be able to implement what our spiritual practices are benefiting us for, what are they giving us, into our day-to-day lives. That is a great indicator, because the renunciate didn't have to interact with other people, so they could skip over that entire part of being human. Yeah, so you might be super enlightened, super connected to the divine, but if that doesn't change how you interact and show up in the world, and also to, throughout Dharma, possibly creating more capacity to improve the world around us, to cultivate more of this in the future. The renunciates weren't really as interested in that. They wanted to pass on the teachings, of course, but they weren't so much interested in developing the other aspects of society per se. So the layers system starts off by basically recognizing the importance of the physical reality. Yeah. So there's this quote that goes along out of Tantra Illuminated that the mind is the most subtle aspect of the body, and the body is the most tangible manifestation of the mind. And the body and the mind are really the first two layers. So I won't go too much into the layers per se now. That'll be in another video. But what I wanted to do was maybe just stoke the fire of inspiration a little bit, to just explain why I've chosen to base the entire yoga teacher training around this system, because I think it's just amazing. but also that people are craving this. Yeah. If you're here, you've probably craved it yourself and not even known what you were craving most of the time. Because that's the thing that's missing in a lot of yoga classes. People go to a yoga class to first work on the physical, yeah, which then makes their physical body feel better. They feel more connected, more grounded. They feel more in their body. They may start to heal ailments and start to feel good in their body. So that then trickles into the next layer, which is the mind and emotions. And then, some people might start to actually be like, oh, wow, this is affecting my thoughts. This is affecting my emotions. This is affecting how I show up, how I think. And then they start to become aware of their thoughts and their emotions a little bit more. And then they delve into that. They get into what we call mindfulness. But then where do we go from there? And that's when people get stuck, because they start to realize they have this intuitive awareness that there's actually so much more to life than what we've been told. And they need somewhere to go from there. And most of the yoga classes don't offer them that. So where do we go when we're wanting to connect to this deeper part of ourselves? We default to whatever religious upbringing we've often had, which I'm not going to, talk about that, but especially if we haven't got something that encourages critical thinking, something that gives us a bigger framework of a larger scale cosmos, which is all inclusive. A lot of religions are exclusive, meaning that you go to a spiritual belief system and they usually say, this is it, this is the real deal, everything else is false. Whereas Tantra is saying, hey, this is a lens that you can actually use to take a closer look at all other religions, at all other belief systems, and to enhance them. And I do strongly believe that this layers system, you can apply this to any belief system, any religion, and it can only expand and enhance your connection with that if, after you get a bird's eye view of it, it is something that you want to continue with. And that's completely up to you. But this layers system is a really beautiful opportunity to keep going deeper and to have a map instead of just wandering around in the dark, because people get to that point in that second layer and then they want to go deeper, but they just wander around and end up further away from where they started sometimes, yeah, or they get stuck in that, which is fine. So then we have, after mind emotions, we have that next layer, which is starting to get into that intuitive realm, or that kind of unconscious realm, where there's these deep archetypal layers. We get into our dreams and dreamscapes and what they mean, and starting to get into that what Carl Jung calls the collective unconscious. And so the interesting thing is, most people only stay in those first two layers. There's actually about three more layers. So it can be a little bit confusing sometimes when we talk about the layers, because it's known as the 6 layers or the 5+1 layers. Because the first layer is the physical, but then there's the physical body, our body, but then the physical stuff around us. So that's why usually I go for the 6 layers, because then we talk about the layers outside of us, so the physical world outside of us. But then there's our physical body. Next layer down, mind and emotions, which are seen as one, interlacing. And then we've got the pranic realm, which is the subconscious kind of realm. And then we've got the void realm, which is kind of like that deep, subatomic kind of void realm where all potential is started. And then what is even behind that? That is pure awareness. That's when we get into shit. Again, this isn't specifically a video explaining what the layers are. This is just giving you, hopefully, some fire of inspiration to why this is such an integral part of the course. Yeah. So again, to circle back, why are we learning this system? Why are we working with the elements? The elements are keys to unraveling the solidity of who we think we are. Ego right? We all talk about the ego. Ego literally translates to I am. So the ego is whatever you think you are. And there's another good quote that says the ego is supposed to be fluid. Yeah. So if the ego is fluid, meaning that it's constantly shifting and changing and evolving, then that's fine. It's only when the ego becomes more permanent and static, then it becomes dangerous. Because if you believe that you are something, then that's going to reduce your opportunities for shifts and changes. But then also we get so attached to that identity that we fight to protect it. And that can be very dangerous. And it's all about balance. Like, we don't want to be completely no one all the time, because we can't really interact with society like that. Yeah. But we also don't want to be too attached to that identity, in that it becomes detrimental to our liberation, to our growth, to our ability to interact with different people at different times in different situations. So it's all a balancing act. Not saying ego is bad, not saying ego is good. And that is the whole tantric tradition. It's not saying that anything is inherently good or bad. Everything is relative and situational. Yeah. So that is just the crux of everything. That's the idea of non-duality. Yeah. That everything is situational. You know, heat, like too much heat can be really, really bad. You know, you might say someone who is in the desert and gets more heat applied to them, they're like, oh, that person is evil. They're like, the heat isn't bad. It's just situational. Yeah, what they would want is coolness in that situation. What about the person who is freezing, who is getting hypothermia, and then gets heat applied to them? That would be good in that situation. Yeah. So everything is situational. So the main tenets here of what we're trying to do with this course. So why are we exploring non-duality? What is non-duality? Why are we exploring the layers? Why are we exploring the elements? And they're the three main parts. Obviously, deities and all these different things are mixed in, but they're just all essentially aspects of these main ideas. And essentially, that's all that we are, all stem from this one awareness. And then this awareness is experienced in the physical, in the mind and emotions, in the subconscious, in that place of stillness that we find sometimes. And it's all interlaced. It's all moving around. There is nowhere to ascend to that you are not currently in. Yeah. We think of, oh, we're separating from our body to go somewhere, right? When we die, we go somewhere. You're already there. You just are shifting your form to be more there, if that makes sense, from this layer system. You know, if your physical body is here, and then your soul or your awareness is here, you're already right there. You can, through breath work, through focus, you can draw your awareness from the physical backwards through the mind and emotions, through the subconscious pranic realm, energy realm, to the void, to this pure awareness, and almost see your own I in the void, it's called. So that is always there. Awareness is always there. There is never a moment in which you are not. Yeah, it's just we're changing how much of our awareness is in each layer. And this is what it's all about. So, a lot of information. Please don't think that you need to understand any of this. This is like a lifetime of work, in that, you know, we go through and we learn all this stuff, right? And most of it probably just going to be gibberish. You're not going to understand most of it. And then you do some practices and you come back and you might understand a little bit more of it. And then you come back. It's all cyclical. Yeah. That's why, like, this ascendant, transcendent thing, it's not like a ladder that once you're up, you're up. Like, this is this cyclical process. Okay. So if you don't get it, if you don't get any of it, just let it go. Yeah. Most of this stuff you only really will get once it drops into your body, once you know it for a while, get intimate with it, and kind of just relax into it. As soon as you try to force your understanding of something, it's probably not going to work. You need to relax into it. So don't try too hard. In the way that show up for the practices, read the things, listen to the things, watch the things. Make sure you try hardest to show up for things so you have the opportunity to absorb the things. But as far as actually trying to process it in your mind and body, be relaxed with it. Don't try too hard to process it. Yeah. Show up for the things, learn the things. But as far as understanding the things, it'll happen naturally if you keep showing up for the things. Yeah, I promise. Anyway, hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that sent a bit of fire of inspiration through you, in that we are not just the yoga world, but the human world in general is craving this right now. And I don't see anyone talking about it. Everyone has these static ideas that this is the truth, that, that we all need to do this, et cetera, et cetera. This is just giving people a map of how to explore the cosmos themselves. Be like, oh, well, there's actually like these layers of reality, and this religion kind of focuses on this layer, and this religion kind of focuses on this, and this is this, and you can almost start to take different belief systems and take different ideas and be like, oh, that's like really like kind of on this level of reality and things like that. Yeah, but it's not saying that this is the truth. This is just a way of understanding things, which may sound a little bit confusing right now, but it'll all make sense eventually. No rush. Enjoy the process, and I will speak to you soon. Much love.